guys, I'm Clarise here on the Live Ready channel, and today I'm doing a couple of river crossings to share some safety tips with you in case you land up needing to cross a river in a survival scenario. Try to always avoid having to cross a river in the first place. Either plan your route in such a way that you don't have to cross a river where there isn't a bridge or where there isn't a clear path. And if you have to cross a river, you'll have to scout up and down the river a bit to see where is the safest place that you can actually cross that river. Now, as rivers flow, more water accumulates in the river and it gains momentum and it gains strength. A lot of people die every year trying to cross rivers because they underestimate the danger associated with crossing a river. And what happens is they're either not strong enough swimmers and they've underestimated the current or the strength of the current or the depth. People have gotten swept along with the river and their gear, their bags, their clothing have gotten snagged and have dragged them under, and it's a huge risk for drowning. People also underestimate the strength and the force of the water. If the tide drags you along and it presses you underneath a rock shelf, underneath the water, you can drown because you cannot get out from underneath that force. So when crossing a river, it's really important to assess your entry and exit points and to have a safety point or a return point that you can backtrack to should you need to. Now, when crossing a river, you must always aim to land downstream from where you start. So you must know that the current is going to move you downriver. So make sure that you don't start your crossing somewhere that there isn't an exit point on the opposite bank. You can even have multiple exit points for yourself in case the current ends up being stronger than what you thought, or you don't manage to swim as fast or cross as safely as you thought you would. Your consideration has to extend to the river as well. If the current is faster than walking speed, then it's most likely not safe to cross. And if a river is in full flood, it's probably not safe to cross it. Try not to cross rivers that are deeper than thigh depth if you can avoid it, unless you think you can swim across safely. Then beware of not being able to see the bottom of the river because you don't know what debris or sharp objects or rocks are there, and you could actually injure yourself stepping on something. And another thing to consider are the animals in the environment. Are they dangerous animals? Are they crocodiles or gators? The river behind me is in full flood at the moment, and there are some serious rapids just up ahead, and this is the first place that I found that the river starts to get towards walking speed. If you are carrying a backpack with you, make sure that your breast buckle is undone. Because if your bag gets snagged on something or the water fills it up, it can become very heavy and drag you down in the water with it. In fact, you can even go so far as to unhook one strap from your shoulder and just hang onto one shoulder strap. Now, people have some waterproof bags that you can inflate for buoyancy, and that might actually help you to cross safely. I know the suggestion has been made that you can inflate your clothing by wetting it, blowing it up and using it for buoyancy. But what I have seen happen is people lose the air from the clothing halfway down the river, and they just end up dragging their clothing along with them. And that can pose a risk to you too, because now you're trying to swim across a river, a moving body of water, and you're dragging something along that can snag, or it can drag you down, or it can fill with water and pose an even greater risk to you. As you cross, make sure that you keep an eye on what is upstream so that there isn't any debris that's going to wash down on you. Slow and steady does it. Don't rush. Consider every step that you take very carefully and make sure that you've got a good foothold before you lift your next foot off. Another thing that you can do is to use a long branch or a stick to probe the water ahead of you and make sure that you're not actually going to step into a huge hole and that there aren't any loose boulders underneath your feet. And even if you make it across the river, there is always the risk of hypothermia. So make sure that you either manage to keep something dry above your head or in your bag or stowed away in a waterproof bag, and that you've got some way of getting warm and recovering your body temperature when you get to the other side. So to quickly assess the water here, what I'm going to try and do is get in the water over there and swim to those rocks and then to those ones and see if I can get the current to push me right across to those rocks over there. If I can get out over there, I can easily swim across to the opposite bank. Now there is a really strong current here that might actually sweep me right past those rocks, but then there are some other places further downstream that I can possibly exit because the water on the other side there is standing still.
Now I know at this point in the video you can't really see what happens to me or where I went. I was concerned about getting pushed in underneath a rock shelf at that very place. It's always safer to approach a rock from the downriver side than from the upriver side, so that you are sure that you're not going to get wedged underneath a rock shelf under the water. So what I did was I swam along here into the dead water over there and then crossed over to the other side where there was less of a current there. And then I've managed to walk all the way around upriver on the other side or the other bank. And I swam down this side again, allowing the current to push me back this side. So if you're going to swim across a river, know that the current is going to push you in the direction of the current, and then use that to your advantage. It's really important that if you don't grab onto the rock that you intended to, just swim along and let the current push you to the next rock. And that's why we have multiple exit points and possible places that we can exit other than the initial place that we planned, is so that if you miss the rock, or it's more slippery, or there's moss or something, or the current is just stronger there, and you don't manage to grab a hold where you thought you would, that you have another exit point down the line. Now this can be very dangerous, so don't try this unless you absolutely have to. I was very fortunate to have some kayakers standing by to make sure I get across and back safely. Thanks for your help, guys, if you're watching this. Even though this river looks really tame, I still have to have a plan when crossing it. So I'm going to aim to come out on the little beach on the other side, and I'm just going to go step by step, take it easy, and just judge every step and make sure that every step is sure and stable, that there's nothing under my feet that's going to move or slip, because remember, sometimes the rocks under the water can be slippery or move as well. How to tell if there are animals around? You can look at the riverbanks and see if you can find any places where crocodiles have lain and where they flatten the grass or the shrubs around there. You can look for partly eaten carcasses, and you can watch the wildlife in the area as well. Other things that can give away animal activity or animal presence at a river can also be if you see bubbles or movement. We don't know what lies beneath these depths, so always good to err on the side of caution. Because it's been raining so much, this might actually be a lot deeper than it looks. I'm out on a supply run, and we've had so much rain in the past couple of days that a lot of the roads around here have flooded, and because I've been warned about the flooding roads, I actually am stuck where I can't really safely cross on foot, and this is what I've run into. You want to be able to see the bottom of the river, and you don't want to be crossing a river that is in flood, like this one is. And you can see there's a lot of mud that's being washed down here as well at the moment. So if you do find yourself in a scenario where you do have to cross a river like this on foot, always good to have a stick of some sort with you. A trekking pole will work, or something that you can just feel where the bottom is, and then keep it in your downriver hand so that you have something to lean on as you go through. Have a plan for getting back if you need to cross back the other way again. and you need to return to where you came from at a later point. And consider also what the weather is doing. If you know that it's going to rain some more or the river is going to flood even further, consider how that's going to affect your plan to get back to where you came from. So I've been very lucky today. I'm going to get a lift across here. Well, I hope that this has been an adventure for you too. Thanks for coming to swim with me today. Remember to hit like and subscribe, and until the next time, live ready.